Welcome back to The Changed Physician. I am Melissa Cady, the Challenge Doctor, with my co-host, Dr. Kevin Cuccaro, for our first attempt at a YouTube Live for our Sunday Salutations for today, November 20th. So we're going to double check and see if we're actually live.
Are we live?
Are we live? Because it says we're live, but this is the first time ever on YouTube. So I'm going to go in here and search The Changed Physician. So for those of you listening, you probably found us already. So let's see if we can find it as well. And we might have to check it out later. It might make it difficult for us to do it on our own.
For YouTube?
Oh, look at that. Did I say YouTube?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I'm showing live Sunday Salutations, 11/20/2022. So for those of you listening, maybe for the first time, our Saturday or Sunday Salutations is typically a place for Kevin and I to gather and talk about our recent episodes and let you know what's happened the last week or so, and then what's coming up, and or some interesting events or thoughts about maybe things going on in our lives or out there in the world or real world.
The real world.
That's right. So how are you doing?
I'm well. So what this was kind of fun is that it allowed me to pull the link and then be able to submit that link directly to Facebook.
Oh, really?
So yeah, I mean, it's not streaming on Facebook, but there's a live, now there's a link and it says Sunday Salutations on our Facebook thing. So it's not quite as ideal as someone just kind of scrolling through Facebook or whatever, but that was way easier than what Facebook has been doing forever. Like I literally could just grab the thing and just post.
Okay, so the big topic we're going to talk about today is what's going on with your fingernails.
Oh, these things. Were you
a catcher in a baseball game, or what's going on?
No, this is my daughter.
Just having fun.
Who's 17 and a half. And no, what was it? I think it was on Friday. I'm gonna do this so you can see my beautiful hands. And I was just goofing off. Like, I was just sort of like bugging her and kind of hassling her a little bit. Although I didn't think I was hassling. I was like, yeah, we'll spend some time together. And she was like, oh. And then she's like, okay, I'll hang out with you if you let me paint your nails. So, she wanted to do both hands. I was like, no, I can only do one, so I can put one hand in my pocket. And they're super bright, and it keeps freaking me out. Like I forget that they're colored, and then I'll like, you get a glass something, and all of a sudden you look and you're like, oh my god, whose hand is that? But anyway, it was a hoot. It was a hoot.
So what was it like? Is there something you realized that you never had before?
No, I mean, I don't know. I've had people paint my nails before. Like, in this time, I'm going to say, like, usually you're like, they'll do, I'm trying to think, when was the last time? I think it was she did it the last time too. And I think she was a lot younger, and it seemed to take a whole lot longer. And this one was just like, boom, 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 boom. And I was like, well, this wasn't worth it. I thought it was supposed to, like, whatever. They're supposed to file your nails and do all that stuff, but and the stuff doesn't chip. Like it's hard.
You also have shorter nails. You have shorter nails, and the nail polish is pretty hardcore nowadays. Sometimes.
Apparently, this is some very nice nail polish she was telling me. So you know how it goes. But
nice. Is it able to come off with nail polish remover? Or is it that?
Yeah, I think so. I got to find some because I'm supposed to go somewhere today, and I'm not sure if this is this is the way to do it. My wife's like, well, you can put a glove on. I'm like, yeah, well, Michael Jackson. Nobody will think that's weird.
Yeah. Well, it's good. We've talked about adaptability, and it's good to be adaptable. So you had some quality time with your daughter.
Oh, we did. She's fun. My kids are the best. And it's like, I would do it again. I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Oh, that's awesome. Very good. Well, do you want to share anything other than your nails?
Other than my nails? I forgot the other book. I was going to say, I've been meaning to bring this up for a couple weeks now. So this is one of those 1 line a day things. And you have done these, right? You put a 1 line in and you fill in.
Oh, yes. Gretchen Rubin was a 5-year journal I did where you see what you wrote the year before on the same day.
Yeah. So this was a blank one, and so I started it over a year ago. Actually, it went the October 9th. So I meant to share this last month because I am now looping and I'm into the second year, and it is an interesting experience, I have to say. I read something where they're like, oh, use a different color pen for a year. And that's kind of cool. So I am doing that.
Yeah.
I would say after a year, I still don't know exactly what I'm doing. But this will be a more interesting year, because I think at some point, you kind of put your ideas down and like, well, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to put what I did today, or what am I, I'm working on, or what am I? And like everything in journal, it's so individualistic, it becomes like overwhelming. But I got to a point where I started like writing questions for future me. So I kind of view this as a dialogue with myself. And then I kind of, the last month I've been reviewing some of the things I've written, and it's just kind of interesting. And then it's interesting to see something like, I have no idea what I just said there. Like, what was that thing that I was talking about? Because I have no context. But I think it's a decent practice. And that's one thing. And then we missed last week that my wife and I were out of town. We went to one of our favorite places in Calistoga for 4 days, and had a great time. Actually met one of my friends. Like, God, went to high school. We were enemies in high school, but then we became fraternity brothers in college. And so he's still a really good friend, and his wife, who I really, really like. And they met us there, and it was a great experience, except we screwed up on the first day because I was trying to get into a specific winery that when we were there last January, I tried to get in, and the guy, he's just busy. Well, he's like all the old school winemakers in Napa Sonoma Valley. One of the sad things is private equity, man, it just comes in and buys stuff. And so they're now buying all these wineries. Yeah. And I understand it from an investment standpoint, it makes a lot of sense, but they've lost the soul of what made them. Their people aren't there anymore. Yeah. So he's one of the few of the last old winemakers, and he just does these total low-key tastings. Like, they don't cost you anything, which is out of par, because everybody else wants to charge you anywhere from $25 to $100 a tasting, which is up from nothing to $5 as it was 20 years ago when we went there. And so we sat down with the guy making the wine, and he goes, this is the 3 wines we're tasting. These are the ones I have available. And it was a vertical. It was all cabs. And it was just awesome. Like, so awesome. Like, the greatest experience. That everything else, you're like, oh, okay, we're done. I guess we're done for the weekend, because no other tasting is going to match this. And we did a couple more, and most of them weren't. He has his old winery, which is across the street, called Vincent Arroyo. The guy we were with is Vince Arroyo. And that one's fun, but it wasn't as cool as actually talking to the winemaker. And then we went to another one on Sunday, which, if you look at like Calistoga, it has all these, go to Tank Garage, which is very good marketing, I will say. Very, very good marketing. And it's probably for people who don't really like wine that much, because it's the fun, hip thing. And none of us like the wines. Like, that was the one place we went, paid the tasting fee rather than, because a lot of times they'll say, well, if you buy 3 bottles, it'll replace the tasting fee. We didn't buy any wine. And it was just like, oh, okay, this is for the people who don't really like wine. Not to say anything bad. I mean, they were nice people, but their wine isn't that good. But other than that, it was a great stay. We had a really, really, really fun time. And yeah.
Nice. Yeah. You made me think of that. I kind of think of it now as a looping journal. I don't know if they call it that, but the way you said it was just looping around. It's like, God,
the 5-year journal.
Yeah, the 5-year journal. So when I had finished out my 5 years on it, you realize, I think some of the realizations I had was, okay, I forget things sometimes. Secondly, you realize that a lot of the things that you personally want to change about yourself or improve upon, it's a really slow process, it seems like. And then the things that really radically transform your life, a lot of times, and this is just in my experience, obviously, it seems like when things happen to me and you have to suddenly pivot, pivot, there's a very strong, at least in those 5 years in that journal, is a very strong motivator for me to shift into something different, do something different. A lot of the things we've talked about on this podcast, actually. Mm-hmm. So it just, when you brought up that looping journal, I was like, yeah, it's like, there is really, you create an awareness about yourself, and how fast time goes by. You're like, holy cow, I'm already in the 5th year on this journal, So if anyone is not big into writing a lot, I think those kind of journals are fabulous. Just because even if you only put 1 minute of thought into it, I think it makes you realize some of us are very like tasker oriented. And a lot of times I just wrote what I did.
And I think that's okay
thoughts.
too, right?
Yeah. But not I was feelings.
I was the big debate, like, and not you, because I don't want you to read my journal, but even though there's really nothing in here, but at some points, like, well, should I be writing my thoughts and feelings, or should I be writing what I did? And then you're like, well, wait a second, there's not a lot of room to write a whole lot, because this is for 5 years, so it's like 5 lines. And I think a mixture of like the nice thing is, if there was something that was memorable about the day that you did or an experience, I think that is very wise to write down, because as you said, we don't remember everything, and we always think we will, but we don't. Like, just kind of understanding how memory is totally malleable, and it kind of disappears. And anyway, it's not like photographs. Everybody thinks your memory as photographs is not like photographs at all. Yeah. And so being able to write those things down then allows you to enjoy the experience again, if it was a pleasurable one, or at least to return it to your memory if it was useful. The other parts, though, the trends on the thoughts and feelings, I think, are very interesting. And the things for me, and this comes up again and again and again, is wherever you are at this moment, you can pretty much guarantee, and I'm talking more like emotional feeling that you're at, you can pretty much guarantee that in the future it's going to be different. And for people who perhaps have a significant either trauma or something's bad going on, and it feels like it's the end of the world, and there's nothing else, and it will never, this is never going to get better, or it can never be worse. Being able to kind of monitor that over time is super useful, because what you see is, no matter how bad something was at a point, generally you're going to get better. No matter how good something was at a point, generally you're going to feel bad again. And so there's this sort of cyclical waves with emotions that you can be aware of. And the best book I think that I've read ever really just talks about this is Stumbling on Happiness by Dan Gilbert, which I've recommended previously on many other Saturday or Sunday Salutations or Friday Faves as we've done them. But then to be able to see it play out as you're going through it, it's interesting, because there's a difference between knowing something and experiencing something. So I've been kind of a fan. I mean, and the other part is you kind of kick yourself, because I'll have times where I've missed a bunch of days, and then I kind of have to do some late entries and stuff like that. What I have found is, obviously, is the more you do it, the more you say, oh, wait a second, the more utility you find, the more attention I've been paying to it. And even playing little games like, oh, well, this is something I want to kind of lock it right now. So I'm actually going to write this down, and then I'm going to go ahead like the next 2 weeks and write little notes to be aware of this thing. Yeah. And then the other part about that is when you were talking about change and being able to kind of track out, there's sort of like the change that occurs because you have to, and then there's intentional change. And I totally agree. It's like those moments of crisis, or when something occurs, I don't say generally, but oftentimes are points when there's significant change that happens. There's an external driver that says this has to change. And we look at, typically they're major stressors, and they're the same ones that are mapped out on, I forgot what the scale is, when it looks like, well, what are the stressors that you have focused over the last year? Changing a job, buying a house, marrying, divorcing, et cetera. And these are like the big stressors there. But intentional change, man, that's hard, and that takes effort. And that's what I'm trying to do with this. So I do so much thinking. Shocking if you've been listening to, like, I'm stuck in my head a lot. And how to translate what you learn then into action intentionally is so hard.
Yeah.
So now I'm trying to like actually do that, where I'm mapping out and saying, okay, well, what am I doing differently? Or I want to make a note so I can check in on this a year from now to see what has occurred. And so we'll see. Who knows what will happen in 5 years? But it's a very different journey than sort of that reaction to things.
Yeah.
And I think the more we can kind of pull that in, the more that we can use awareness to drive intentional change. I think the more control we have in such a way of kind of where we perceive we want to be. And that's not, I mean, trauma, post-traumatic growth, the literature on that is really interesting. And we definitely know that people oftentimes will come through a horrible event better off than they expected and actually have a tremendous amount of growth. Generally, no one will say they want to do it, but they'll recognize that it was they grew through that experience. But what sounds better, actually intentionally trying to make things better, or then waiting for some trauma to occur in order for you to change? To me, I mean, you're going to get the trauma, but maybe it would also be useful to actually do some intentional change along the way as well.
Yeah. Well, I have to say a lot of my lessons in life have been the hard way. So there is that, and reacting, and but not letting it bring you down, and learn from it, I guess you could say. But from a journal standpoint, I think with that short line that you have to write, I've found, if anything, like you said, there's some major events that might happen that day, or some unexpected thing, or accomplishment, which you'd want to notate most likely. But the gratitude part, there's something about just being intentional about expressing some gratitude about something that day. I mean, if you don't do it every day, at least like contemplate what you might be grateful for. And I found myself doing that if I didn't have any like overwhelming feeling about the day. I try to dig in and kind of see the I don't know, silver lining, even if the day wasn't anything grandiose, or great in your eyes. But so I found that interesting. And I want to mention something like a favorite thing. I haven't really utilized it much yet, but it ties into memories, I think, because about photos. I don't know how you store your photos or back them up, but and I don't know what people think about Amazon, but I will say there's a lot of people that are Amazon Prime members. And I just discovered there is an app. It's separate from the Amazon app, but it's called Amazon Photos. And it's unlimited photo storage, unlimited, and also up to like 5 gigabytes of video storage. And you could pay for more for the videos. But you can either let it automatically download from your device every time, or for people who want to be sure that the things that they don't want for everyone possibly to get their hands on not go there, then you can just manually select them. But obviously, I mean, the first thing I thought is it's a brilliant business idea, because then you can do what Shutterfly and all these other people do and create photo albums and make those for Christmas.
Oh, from Amazon, you can do that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So just putting it out there that if somebody doesn't want to pay like I do with like Apple or for iTunes, I guess, to increase my photo storage every month, even if it's $1.99 or $2.99, you don't have to worry about that if you want to just like store them on Amazon. You plan to be an Amazon Prime member till they go bye-bye. So, or you go bye-bye.
We use Google. Well, we use both. We use Apple and we use Google Drive.
Yeah, I have Drive for a lot of non-photo stuff. I use that temporary for photos in Google Drive. And
we've been with Shutterfly, I think, and since they started.
Yeah,
I don't use them very much anymore because they're annoying. I do like Shutterfly. Like, will send you an email. I'm like, this moment 10 years ago, this moment 14 years ago, this moment 20 years ago. Those are kind of fun, but it gets a little overwhelming, because to me, being not super techie, the really scary thing is when you're on your phone, like on the Google Drive, it's like you delete. I'm like, okay, I got to clear up space on the desktop, and then you delete some stuff, and I'm never sure, is it wanting to delete it from the cloud as well, because it makes these little things like, we're gonna update and delete whatever, and I'm like, no, that's not what I want to do. I like, just stick it all up in the cloud and let me delete it off all the peripheral stuff. Yeah. And I never know. So we have all this stuff backed up all over the place, hard drives here, that, whatever. And it's too much.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, I do love the Shutterfly photo books. Every time one of our pets dies, I make a little photo book of them and all the pictures that we can, find, and then just keep their memory that way. So, for animal lovers, it's nice to have a little, and you can give it to friends or family or whoever. But they're super easy, and they always have those annoying 50% off everywhere coupons, so you're not paying really as much. So I'm sure Amazon. The question is how that'll compare. Speaking of, another 50% off Shutterfly. But yeah, so memories, it may not be like a photo, your memories, but if you want to keep memories through photos, then there's a lot of ways of doing it.
I'm just looking, I just signed into the Amazon Photos, and apparently we
have to do
must have done something like 6 years ago. And I'm like, oh, these are kind of smart things. I had uploaded like all of at least all of my internship, residency documents, fellowship documents.
Into what?
Into Amazon Photo. I guess it was originally like whatever because I know they're transitioning, they're deleting whatever their Amazon Drive was.
Oh.
And they just put everything into Amazon Photo now.
I never even saw that or used that before. I don't know how you knew about that.
I don't know either. And it was it was 6 years ago, because of 2016 or 2015 I must have uploaded this stuff, or maybe earlier than that. But anyway.
Yeah, well, you can, from the app, you can share it if you have like a family shared account. Like my husband and I have 2 accounts, but it's shared as a family. You can share with each other, or you can share via email or text that photo as well to other people. So it looks pretty versatile and pretty user friendly. So anyway, but maybe I should mention our recent podcasts.
Sure.
We are on the 20th today. So last week we had episode 225 between the two of us about the most amazing machine, which is, as you could probably guess, the human body. And then we had a Thursday throwback with Dr. Eric Larson, who's an anesthesiologist and podcaster with the Paradox podcast. That was from episode 40. I think that was still back in 2020. So still early on, but we brought that back in for people who may have missed it back then. Any comments about those, Kevin?
No, other than they were always fine. I'm always the whole thing about the amazing machine, that it still just blows my mind, like how and it's the machines in quotes on the thing, because really your human body is better than any machine, and is not a machine, but it is so amazing. Like, and if people just get out of the way and stop like trying to think of it like a machine, they'd be so much better off.
Yeah. I don't know how we oversimplify that. And when you look at the way our industry and just in America, the way we, I'm sure there's other places too, but I think we our culture is all about work and go and workaholism, and that's kind of like elevated as a good thing. The problem is we are not machines, and we are adapting in a negative direction many times, and we don't even recognize the insidiousness of that in the wrong direction. And our health can take our relationships, and ultimately our wealth, if we're not taking care of all those other things, can be hindered. So anyway, well,
I want to add though, one of the worst things is that people view their body like a machine, and so when they think of there's pain, that there's something broken, needs to be fixed. Like, because the biggest example of that is I see these people, elbow pain, and then they go see the orthopedist, and then they start whittling around in there and they do their little things. Like arthroscopy is like the stupidest surgery. So stupid. Like, oh, well, let's do an arthroscopy, and we're going to go into this pristine joint, and then we're going to grind around in there, and lo and behold, what do you see? And then you're going to get arthritic change, like significant arthritic change. And people just get whittled. And it just shocks me. Like the amount of people that have gotten, both hips done, and their knees are scoped, and then the docs are whatever. Obviously it's what they want to do. They're going to try to pit a camera into any sort of joint space they possibly can. And they're getting smaller and smaller and smaller. oh God, please just stay away from them. Stay away. Let your
So-
body heal.
So yeah, I'll make a comment off that. Obviously, there's a time and a place for acute medical care. However, it is very gray zone because people can be convinced that it extends to all these other things. And the problem with many of us as patients is that we don't have the patience. We need patience to have more patience. That's the title of another episode. Is that I can't tell you how many times, Kevin, I've been looked at like I'm crazy when I tweaked my knee a little bit. I basically probably hyperextended, a little rotated going up. It was actually in Oregon. What's the one that had the fire, that beautiful area to hike north of
Multnomah Falls and stuff?
Yes, I was
Okay.
Multnomah Falls. And of course it was on the way up.
Yeah.
So I had to come down. So let me just say my knee was a little pissed off, got some swelling, and I didn't feel so great walking down. But I'm like, it's functional. It's just, it's got some swelling and I gotta give it some time. So I hobbled for a couple weeks. It was super tender. Of course, I know what's acutely concerning. So I'm not like oh, there goes my cat. Sorry if you heard that. I wasn't having a major septic thing or there's things that you just need to get dealt with right away. So I'm just like, hobble it off and just, not too much, not too little, and just keep going. And people around me in the medical field are wondering why I'm not getting medical attention, or why don't I get this or that, or I didn't even take medicine for it. And then the swelling goes down in about 3 weeks. There's still a mild residual, probably for 2 to 3 months. I know what it feels like on the inside, and it feels different, but I still can walk around. But it probably took a good 6 to 9 months of whatever remodeling and whatever was going on there to settle, where I felt like it was completely my knee before. So how many people are willing to wait that out?
Well, how many people would have the confidence to wait it out? I think if people knew, hey, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And actually believe that they're going to be okay.
Yeah.
They'd be more willing to do it, except for the fact that no one believes that, because they're always told that there must be something wrong.
Yeah.
And,
how many more surgeries I could have had?
Oh my God. I
could have had 7 more surgeries in my lifetime easily.
Yeah.
If I complained long enough, hard enough, and quick enough to somebody willing to do something.
Well, and that's the thing, these arthroscopies, people think it's not a big deal. It is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
You are now actually changing that joint space.
Mm-hmm.
And
not necessarily for the better.
No, not for the better. And I would pull it up, but the rates of post-surgical arthritic change is insane.
Yeah.
So don't let them touch it in there. And it's and then the other part about, and I think we talked about this in the episode, was the fact that it is never as good as it originally was. People think that, oh, we're going to get this new bionic joint. It is never as good as what it used to be. Now, granted, the technology is improving, and I don't want to, anybody who's had a replacement to be freaking out. But it will never be as good until we can, I don't know, regrow a joint or whatever the case may be. And that technology may come in 50 years. But for now, stay the hell out of them.
Until we, whatever you believe in, whoever created or allowed us to be created, I'm sorry, as humans, we're not able to recreate. I mean, we can procreate, but we can't recreate from nothing who we are and how we develop and all the amazing things that we have. So whole point
That's
is
all on that episode and more.
Yeah. So go watch that episode.
Yeah.
And let's see what's coming up. Well, I think some things that are coming up, they kind of tie into what we talked about. We'll just say it's related to change, but that's no surprise.
Wait, don't we have something to be released this week though? Or are we only doing the week before?
So this is the 20th.
Yeah.
Today is something being released regarding change. Right?
Yeah.
And then we got a Thursday throwback. If you're like to hear about direct primary care, then this Thursday is a Thursday throwback releasing out on the podcast. So, but there is some really cool stuff coming up the following week. We'll just say
cool.
Yeah, we've got some repeat guests that are just awesome, and they've agreed to come back on multiple occasions. They're that awesome. So
yep.
You'll just have to stay tuned for our next week, possibly Saturday.
Well,
I don't know. Next week
we're not going to do next
Thanksgiving.
week. Yeah, next week's Thanksgiving.
We're taking family time.
We're taking family time.
Yeah. So why don't we just say, stay tuned.
Yeah.
Now Kevin's setting me straight here. He's trying to prepare me for the fact this is going to be Thanksgiving coming up. Let's just say Dr. Eric Tate is on the slate. I don't know why that rhymed.
Dr. Eric Tate. He's on the slate.
On the state of economy.
Yeah.
That's some good stuff. So make sure you listen. That'll release on Sunday after Thanksgiving. And then there'll be another Thursday throwback that following Thursday with Dr. Ali Abdal. He's the UK physician who we talked about, who's also an amazing YouTuber. So
actually, he's not a physician. I think he quit completely.
Well, I think he had his license or eligible.
He finished their equivalence of residency, and then he's making so much money. I thought it was it internship?
Well,
anyway, he finished whatever his primary training was.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I'm making way too much money on YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Well, I mean, there's a price we pay as physicians. I mean, it's not benign. Let's just say that.
He's been doing the online stuff longer than he was in medicine.
Yeah.
So,
but great insight for him.
Oh yeah. Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
But cool.
For him.
Well, why don't you take us out then?
Sure. Well, welcome all to Sunday Salutations. Always great to either imagine that you're watching this right now, even though it's probably not. Hope you like the new YouTube format. If you're usually seeing us on Facebook and you click the link and you don't like it, or you prefer us to do it on Facebook or whatever, just let us know. I will tell you the YouTube thing is significantly easier to do.
Yes.
Yeah. So we will not be here next week because it is Thanksgiving and we will be spending time with our families, but we will be here the following week after that.